Thank you for another opportunity to give you some content which I believe is going to enlighten you, is going to help you understand and navigate the virtual reality environment with informed ideas and information. So, it has been a while since I recorded a video, owing to a few issues here and there regarding the activities that I do apart from this. So, what I have for you today is basically a very important topic, which is very important not only to the users of virtual reality but also the people who are giving us this technology, the people who are giving us these technologies that we are using in virtual reality. So remember, this technology encompasses several other ideas, several other knowledge, and several other uh, informed research details of information. But today I want to focus on psychological and emotional impact of virtual reality. So I want us to look at how psychology and emotional impact of virtual reality really affect our lives and how do we make use of this. And we also need to look at some of the areas which, if we don't take heed and do what is necessary, will end up, not gaining much from virtual reality. So as you sit there, probably you are thinking you want to use virtual reality, you want to use it in your business, you want to use it at home, probably you want to use it to teach or even to learn. The solution is there for you. Virtual reality is actually a valid technology that has promise and has been able to deliver so far what it promises. So I'm going to look at the psychological and emotional angles of this virtual reality, how it affects us, because it is one technology that is there to stay and it is defining the terrain of computer science, the terrain of computer usage, the terrain of IT infrastructure uses and consumption in the world today. So I want to look at emotional well-being and virtual reality experiences. Apart from that, I'm also going to look at what we call the other topic that I'm going to look at is what we call addiction, escapism, and their psychological effect. And apart from that, I'm going to finish off this learning journey with the psychological effects of excessive use of virtual reality. So those are the key major things that we are going to tackle today, and we are going to look at how these things are able to influence our use and our consumption of virtual reality systems and technology that is there. So let us start off by looking at the first item in our tray. So we want to look at this from a very informed angle to be able to dissect and derive knowledge here, because at the end of the day is about knowledge. It's about gaining knowledge and making use of this knowledge where appropriate. So I'm going to look at the emotional well-being and virtual reality experience. You see, emotional well-being and virtual reality experiences are very interconnected. They are intertwined in so many ways. Now, virtual reality has the potential to impact our emotion positively or negatively, depending on how we use these virtual reality systems and technologies that are there. Now, the first thing that we are going to look at is therapeutic applications. Virtual reality is usually applied in therapy. And we all know the work of therapy is most important when we are trying to gain our previous state of mind, and we are just trying to go back to what we were, or we are helping a person or an individual to gain that confidence, gain that health that they had before. So you see, when we are talking of therapeutic applications, we are looking at how can virtual reality be used to reduce stress. So one of the way is to basically reduce stress is by use of virtual reality. So virtual reality can be used for stress reduction through guided relaxation and meditation experiences. So virtual reality environment that simulate calm, serene setting can really help users relax and reduce stress. Now, under the same subtopic or the same idea of therapeutic application, we also have what we call exposure therapy. We all have our, we call them phobias. The things that we dread most. They're things that normally take us off balance because of our inner fear. You see, so virtual reality is utilized in what we call exposure therapy to treat phobias, also to treat what we call post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety disorder. So control exposure of virtual reality can help a big deal, basically to help individual control and even confront their fears, to bring out the best in them so that they can overcome those emotional distress that comes with phobia or post-traumatic disorder that they might be in. So the next element is what we call immersion and presence. Now, this is part of the key thing in virtual reality, because the sense of presence in virtual reality, where users feel fully immersed in virtual reality environment, can elicit powerful emotional responses. Now, these immersions can be used to create positive emotional experiences such as awe or wonder in education or in entertainment context. So that is the reason why virtual reality, when it comes to this aspect, is very important, because it is able to bring that artificial sense of environment which simulate the real environment, and you can move in there and be able to learn a few things here and there and even entertain yourself. There is also what we call empathy and perspective taking. Now, we need to understand exactly what this is. So, virtual reality experiences that allow users to see the world from different perspective or step into another person's shoes can basically foster what we call empathy. So, you are able to understand the experiences of other people and can lead to which can lead to positive emotional outcome. So it is important to know that, because virtual reality can be able to simulate the environment, can help you, move or be in somebody's shoes, and from there you can somehow be able to view or to perceive the world as they do. And in that context and in that reality that you are in, you are able to see what they feel. You are able to see and even understand them better, the way more than the way you'd look at it without that experience. So we also have what we call emotional resilient building. This is another aspect that is very important when it comes to virtual reality and psychological thinking. So we have what we call emotional resilience building. Now, virtual reality can be used to build emotional resilience by exposing users to challenging situation in a controlled environment. This can help individual learn to manage or adapt to emotionally to stressors. You can adapt emotionally to those things that are causing stress, those things that are basically difficult to deal with. Now, if you have virtual reality system that can be able to expose you to such, and in a controlled environment, then you have the upper hands, because you are going to learn how to cope through situations that normally leads to stress. So you are able to cope and be yourself and be able to take control of your life and the environment in which you exist. Now, apart from that, we also have what we call entertainment and enjoyment. So this is the main idea of virtual reality, is to give us that entertainment that we are seeking. Users are able to derive entertainment in various aspects and in various perspectives. So engaging and entertaining virtual reality experiences contribute to human emotional well-being. So virtual reality can provide a platform for relaxation and enjoyment. Now, immersing yourself in gaming or interactive storytelling can be able to uh, give you a source of pleasure and satisfaction if you use this system according to the specified guidelines that are meant to be used when you are using, or when you are making use of virtual reality system at your disposal. Now, there is also the element of social interaction. Now, virtual reality is very important in bringing people from different walks of life together. There are virtual reality games that people can play together, people from different regions, people from different walks of life, uh, basically bringing together diverse people to collaborate in gaining something that both of them have interest in. Now, virtual reality can facilitate social interactions through virtual gathering and collaborations activities. We also have virtual or social virtual reality experiences can basically be used to fight loneliness and contribute to emotional well-being. So these are some of the positive aspects of virtual reality. We also have what we call ethical consideration. So ethics is fundamental. It is not only in virtual reality, but even in our surrounding where we live. We ought to be guided by some ethics that is there to streamline how we behave and how we interact within the system, within the social context we are coming from. So this is one of those pertinent issues that it is important to look at, because you know that on the flip side, virtual reality can also lead to emotional distress if they are designed to frighten or to scare people, to fret people, if they're designed to be violent, if they're designed to be offensive. So content creators need to consider potential impact of their experiences and users' emotional well-being when they are coming up with this system. So it is imperative that this goes down clearly as it is, because it is very important for us to recognize the role and the position of ethics in everything that we do, because we are human beings and we all need a society that is full of vibrant, well built people emotionally, people who are consistent, people who are not stressed, people who are healthy. So we don't want a society that is thriving, but vast majority are ailing because of the systems and the ideas and the technologies that we are using. We don't want technology that causes harm to people. We don't want technologies that are there to plunge people into some other problems which could have been avoided if ethics and the due diligence and the guidelines are followed to the latter. So we also need also to look at the digital well-being of virtual reality. Now, many a time spending a lot of time in virtual reality can negatively uh, affect our emotional well-being. And not only that, it can also affect our health, and that is very sad. So we need to be considerate with ourselves and even control the amount of time we spend on these systems and this technology, because spending excessive time in virtual reality can have a negative consequences for emotional well-being. So things like eye strain, disorientation, disconnect from the reality, because we can choose to disconnect ourselves from reality because we already have another reality, that is virtual reality. But we need to create a life that is balanced. We don't have to only depend, we don't want to end up being conceived to be addicted, or we don't want to be addicted ourselves to this technology and end up losing our social aspect of life. Because as it is, we human beings, we are social beings. We need to interact with people. We need to look and see in our environment what kind of relations that we have. Are they healthy? Are they sort of bringing benefit not only to us but also to the rest of the community? Because in any relationship, it is normally a mutual kind of relationship where both the individuals and those that are within the society are able to exude elements and encouragement that will both benefit all the parties within that society construct. So it is important to uh, look at that. But we also need to understand there are some other negative perspective of virtual reality. And one of them is what we call addiction. The other one is what we call escapism. So both are very detrimental if our usage of virtual reality lead us to that angle or lead us to that end, because addiction and escapism is the context in the context of virtual reality, or in the context of technology and virtual reality, is something that brings in significant psychological effect on human beings. So it is important we understand the basic the elements the elements that we can be able to face, or the kind of scenario that we are able to face, because at the end of the day we need to be healthy. We need to face our fears and work on them. We need to face reality and be present in our lives and those that are around us. We cannot alienate ourselves and consider ourselves outcasts by spending virtually our entire time on virtual reality, and that one will be a bad thing or a bad idea, not only to yourself but those people who are around you. So we want to look at addiction, escapism, and basically their effect, their psychological effect that comes with them. So this by no means does not should not be taken negatively, that we should now not use virtual reality. It is all about how we control ourselves, how we organize ourselves, how we plan ourselves. It is all about planning and executing, timing yourself, be in the position to organize yourself and be able to know how much and how are you going to spend your time on virtual reality system. And this one will go a long way in helping you adapt and cope with both environment. You are able to interact amicably with people within the normal environment, and also you are able to derive the most from using virtual reality. So we want to look at addiction to virtual reality and technology. So we need to, first of all, we need to define what addiction is. Probably you don't know what addiction is. Probably you know, but it is something that you think it cannot affect you, right? So we need to know this because we are part and parcel of a society. So addiction basically is compulsive, unhealthy reliance on substance or behavior, which can lead to negative consequences in a person's life. So, in the context of virtual reality, it can manifest itself in uncontrolled, excessive use of virtual reality and technology. So, in that way, you find that virtual reality excessive use can lead to addiction. Okay, so some of the effect of addictions is what we call withdrawal syndrome. There is also what we call escalation. There is also what we call impaired real world functioning. So those are some of the effect of virtual excessive use of virtual reality that I want us to look at. So these are able to be experienced when a person relies so much on virtual reality system to stay alive, in the sense that to stay put in whatever environment they are, okay, or whichever environment you are in. So it is important we look at some of the psychological effects. As I've mentioned, one of them is what we call withdrawal syndrome. Okay, so excessive use of virtual reality leads to withdrawal syndrome when not using the technology. So somebody will feel withdrawn, from real life, and they tend to keep to themselves. So user may experience things like anxiety, irritability, and they can even have very strong desire to return to virtual reality, because now virtual reality, after excessive use of it, now become part of their life. Is now they depend on it. So they technically, when they're not using virtual reality systems and technology, they feel a strong urge to go back and start doing what they were doing, so that they can come back to that working state within themselves. So it is important to look at that. There's also what we call escalation. So over time, users may require more intense or immersive experience to achieve the same level of satisfaction. Now, this can lead to what we call dependency. It can lead to dependent on virtual reality. Just like when we are talking of alcoholism and such, excessive use or consumption usually leads to addiction, and after addiction, it take you to what we call a dependent state. When it is beyond that state, you go to what, for lack of a better word, we call rock bottom. So it is something that we need to consider. So we need to look at, is our usage of virtual reality leading us this direction? So when we are seeing ourselves heading to this direction rather, we need to reduce, we need to organize ourselves, we need to go back to the drawing board and reorganize ourselves and see what is the best way of using virtual reality and deriving the most out of it. So there's also the effect of what the effect or the psychological effect we call depersonalization. Now, prolonged immersion in virtual reality may lead to a sense of detachment from the reality. So, where individuals struggle to distinguish between a real and virtual world. So, it becomes gray for some people, because they are so much dependent on virtual reality to an extent they are used to that. So distinguishing or separating between real and virtual becomes a problem. There's also what we call negative emotions that is brought about by continuous use of virtual reality. So it is imperative that when we are using virtual reality, we stay away as much as possible from uh, this kind of consistent use. It's good to use the devices and the technology consistently, but we need to control ourselves. We have what we call negative emotion. Now, addiction to virtual reality can be associated with feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, particularly when it leads to neglecting real world responsibility. So, this can this will not only affect or strain your relationship with the people around you, but they will think that you are losing it, and probably you will lose touch with those that are there, those people who love you, those people who consider you family. When you use these devices so much and you forget about them, you even forget about yourself. And human beings, we have been configured and wired in such a way that we need people around us. We need people who we can depend on, people who can depend on us. So get to know there are people who are depending on you. Get to know that there are people who love you. So when you denying them the chance and you are not responsible in making sure that you are able to take care of your responsibilities, you are able to provide for them, or even you don't show them that appreciation, you don't spend time with them, so then it becomes a negative thing, not only to yourself but also to them that love you and care about you. So the next thing we looking at apart from addiction is what we call escapism. So in virtual reality, they there are so many ways people can escape from the real world and orientate themselves to the virtual world that is created by virtual reality system. So one of the psychological effects apart from addiction that is brought about by virtual reality is what we call escapism. So by definition is escapism is the use of immersive experiences such as virtual reality as a means to escape from challenges and stresses of life. So you running away from problems using virtual reality is what we call escapism. You're trying to escape from real world problems. You don't want to solve them. So instead of solving them, the problems you leave them pending, and now you use your virtual reality instead of solving the problem. Now this has a psychological dimension that is not good at all. So we need to look at the psychological effects. Okay, so we have what we call temporary relief by escaping the real world stress. Basically, will offer you some temporary relief from the problems, but the moment you stop using virtual reality, you come back to the original state, and you'll find those problems still waiting for you or seeking your attention so that you can settle them and be able to eradicate them from within your environment or from within your life. So one of the elements or one of the thing that comes with escapism is what we call avoidance. So continual reliance on virtual reality as a form of escapism may lead to avoidance behavior where individuals avoid confronting their life issues. So you can try to avoid whatever you're supposed to do by using your virtual reality system. Then there's also what we call isolation. Some people tend to, seclude themselves and withdraw themselves from the family setup, and now, form another family with their devices and the gadget, and now start to construct for themselves another social life that is human beings against gadgets. So it is very important. So continuous reliance on virtual reality as a form of escapism can lead to not only avoidance but also can lead to isolation. When you seclude yourself, when you withdraw yourself from your family members and you try to stick away where you are by yourself and the devices and you neglect them, is very uh, it is very bad. Now, um, this effect or all these kind of challenges that are brought by virtual reality, they have what we call long-term effects. So escapism, when used excessively, may hinder a person's growth and problem-solving skills. So, as individual may resort to avoidance rather than facing the challenges. So, it is imperative that we face the challenges as they are, and there is no need of using technology to escape and run away from the problems, because these problems, we need to face them, we need to solve them out. And when you solve a problem today, you become more enlightened, you become free, you enjoy the moment, and you are also able to immerse yourself into a different world, and this world will be of triumph and victory, because you will look back at the problems and how you solve it, and you will be able to encourage yourself. So it is important that we face our challenges head on and never run away from them. So we need to look at the last bit of our video today, and that is the psychological effect of excessive use of virtual reality. You see, in life, we have so much that we need to pay attention to. We have so much that we need to take care of before we settle down and derive enjoyment from our gadgets and all those things that we have been able to bless ourselves with in our community, in our homes. So it is important that we look at some of the effects that is generated by excessive use of virtual reality. So remember, the key thing here is excessive use of virtual reality. So anything in excess is normally a problem. If you eat too much, it will be called debauchery. If you drink so much, you will end up becoming a drunkard, or you depend on, such kind of hard stuff. So, excessive use of something is bad. So, the prolonged exposure to virtual reality may lead to what we call depersonalization, where users feel disconnected from their own bodies, and derealization, where they perceive the real world as less or more dreamlike. Okay, so to them now things changes. So it is important we check ourselves so that we don't end up into these states that we are mentioning right now. There's also what we call emotional impact. So virtual reality can evoke strong emotional responses, both positive and negative, which may have a lingering effect on users' moods and emotion. So virtual reality is very important in delivering various elements in terms of what we are learning, or in terms of our businesses. So virtual reality is very important, not only in business, not only in learning setup, not only in health setups. So it is important that we look we look at we look at we look at what we call desensitization, right? Exposure to violent and disturbing content in virtual reality can lead to what we call desensitization, where individuals become less sensitive to real world violence and distress. We become less sensitive. We lose touch. Basically, it's like losing touch with the reality, and you become some sort of a zombie. You don't care. And that is not where we want to head to. So there is also addiction like symptoms, which are generated by excessive use of these devices. So it is imperative that we look at addiction like symptoms, addiction like behavior, include things like craving, loss of control, negative consequences. So those are some of the effects that virtual reality can lead us to if we don't pay attention to how we use them, if we don't control our usage of them. So it is important we look at this. Now, last but not least, I want us to look at what are some ethical content creation guidelines that have been, suggested for the developers and users alike to follow and to guide their use of virtual reality going forward. So you see, in technology world, we normally talk of ethics. So ethics is the centerpiece because we are human beings, and we as human beings, we are social beings, and what sometimes or most of the time, whatever I do affect the person next to me. So whatever I'm doing should have some elements of ethics in it, as I consider the well being of that person next to me. And therefore, we have what we call ethical guidelines that are there or that have been set up to make sure that these content that we are being given, we are able to use them and use them well. So we have what we call informed consent. So when talking of informed consent, we are alluding to things like transparencies, right? Transparency. So users should be fully informed about the content and its potential impact before engaging in virtual reality experience. So provide clear description, warning about the content. So that is very important. There is also what we call voluntary participation. Users should have the option to opt out or in of potential intense or sensitive experience. Then consent should be freely given without coercion. So the consent that we give as users should not be forced. It should not be like something that you give at a gunpoint. It should be voluntary. It should be something that you sit down, you consider the merit and the demerit, then you consent, then you become part of it, then you buy the idea, you buy the school of thought. So it is important that we do that. There's also what we call respect for diverse audience. Now, virtual reality as it is meant to help everyone regardless of their religion, creed, or skin color. So there are things that we need to consider. So we avoid what we call harmful stereotypes. So content creators should avoid perpetuating what we call harmful stereotype related to gender, related to race, related to ethnicity, disability, and other characters. So virtual reality content creators and virtual reality creators should, desist from doing or perpetuating any kind of stereotype that will force or make other think or perceive as being undermined in one way or another. So we also need to look at what the privacy and data protection is another important guideline that should be looked into. In my last video, I talked at length about data collection and user tracking. And if you collect user data if you collect user data, so it is important you do so transparently with the user's consent. So you need to respect the user privacy, and you also need to make known how you are going to handle that data you've collected from the users. And whatever way you are going to handle this data, it should be well known to the user, and you should not use it for other gains, okay, that will be able to expose the users to other form of problem. So it is important. There's also what we call user safety. It's a big thing in virtual reality because of how the setup and the physical interaction within the environment where the virtual reality system has been installed. So user safety is very important. We also under this we have things like physical safety. So when you're using virtual reality system, you should be safe. You should not start doing things, then hitting devices here and there within your environment. You can probably get injured from that. There's also what we call emotional safety. So the content should not be able to, affect users emotionally to the negative side. So be mindful of the potential emotional impact of virtual reality. The creators or the content creators should avoid content that can cause severe emotional stress. So the other element is what we call avoiding misinformation. So the information this content creator deliver to the users of virtual reality should be factual and should be something that is reliable, right? So I think those are the key components that we need to look at. We also have safety protocols like user support, testing and iteration, which normally comes when implementing this, so looked into. So having said that, we need also to remember we have things like community guidelines, which establishes how we use the content of virtual. Those are some of the things that are very important. So that is all from me today. Remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.